welcome to Real Life Beyond Faith, where a formerly Christian, currently atheist couple takes a deep dive into the experience of life after deconversion. This is episode 27. I'm your host, Jenica Crail, and Patrick, my husband, is not with me tonight. Well, we weren't able to record an episode together this week because we didn't have any free nights where we could sit down together and record, so I'm having to do this while he's at work. So it's just me today. I know. It's better with the two of us. Trust me, I know. I will miss him. But I figured I would take this opportunity to talk about growing up as a woman in Christianity and kind of the things that you're taught as a woman and what I've learned since then, like since becoming an atheist, about what parts of those things are true and what I can just toss aside as being a bunch of garbage, pretty much. I actually wrote a blog article about this a couple of years ago called 10 Things You're Taught Growing Up as a Christian Woman. And it actually got about, I think, it was around 20 or 30,000 shares on social media. It kind of blew up a little bit. And I think it's because so many women can relate to this. So many women had the same kinds of experiences growing up in Christianity. It was actually, as sad as it was to know that so many people could relate to these experiences, it was actually kind of validating because I realized, okay, yeah, this wasn't just me. It wasn't just all in my head. This is actually legit. Like what I'm feeling about these things is legit. And a lot of people have felt the same way about it. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on that. I don't really have anything to update you guys on about our lives. It's just been pretty much the same old. Trying to get through the winter blues. I've been feeling a little bit down and depressed lately. My anxiety is kicking in a little. So I've been doing a lot of self-care and working on just existing, surviving. But I'm doing pretty well compared to how it's been in the past. I'm definitely not like in need of medication or anything at this point. Therapy would be good. Just not sure if we can spare the spare change at the moment. But we'll see. I think once it gets like nicer outside, a little bit warmer, a little brighter, it will probably help my mood, and we'll see how I'm feeling then. As for now, I'm doing my best and taking care of myself. If any of you out there are struggling with the season or just in general with depression or anxiety, make sure you're taking care of yourself. Make sure you're finding things to indulge in self-care. Find a hobby that you really enjoy. Write in a journal. If you're artistic, paint, draw. There are a lot of ways that we can, kind of distract our minds from the racing thoughts and the anxieties of everyday life. I totally get it. I'm right there. Also, there's the Secular Therapy Project. So if you're in a position where you want to get some therapy, you can go to seculartherapy.org and find a secular therapist who won't push religion on you. I might be doing that myself if I need to, so we'll see. But anyway, to get into things, I am going to be reading a little bit from that article that I wrote about growing up as a Christian woman. I'll also just be like adding little tidbits as I go along. Not sure that this episode is going to end up being a full hour. Hopefully I can at least get close to an hour because that's how long our episodes are supposed to be or how long we shoot for. So I don't know, because I've never done a full episode literally all by myself. So hopefully I'll have enough to say. I am a rambler, so that should probably help at least. All right, so I can only speak from the perspective of a woman growing up in Christianity. Since I am a woman, I don't have the male perspective. So what I'm going to say about this is completely from a woman's perspective, and I cannot touch on the male perspective. If we want to do that, maybe we'll do an episode with Patrick about that. So just as a disclaimer at the beginning, this is simply the women's perspective. Another thing is this can vary greatly depending on what denomination you were raised in, your parents and how seriously they took their faith, and your religious leaders and what they taught. So my experience may be different than a lot of other women's experience within the faith. So keep that in mind as well. When I'm talking about this stuff and what you're taught in Christianity, it's not necessarily what every woman is taught, but a lot of it is at least taught to a degree, even just within our culture. Our culture is so heavily influenced by religious thinking and Christian values, if you can even call them values, some of them, that really, like, even if you weren't raised super religious, some of these things might actually just be ingrained within you because you were raised in a culture so heavily influenced by Christianity. So that's also part of it. I'm going to go through point by point and say, this is what I was taught, but the truth of the matter is this now that I have taken a step back and can look at it from, a humanist perspective, I have learned a lot of things. And so I'm just going to share those things with you. So I'll go ahead and do that right after this break. Hey there. If you like what we're doing and want to support us, you can head over to patreon.com/reallifebeyondfaith and become a patron for as little as $1 per episode. Your support is greatly appreciated and goes toward a podcast hosting site, equipment, time spent recording and editing, and our activism in our community and beyond. You'll also gain access to behind-the-scenes video content from our recording shenanigans. Another great way to support us is to give us a 5-star review on iTunes or Stitcher, or share our show on social media. You can find us at facebook.com/reallifebeyondfaith and Twitter at RLBFpod. And you can email us at reallifebeyondfaith@gmail.com. All right, I'm back. So point number 1 from this article that I wrote, you were created from and for man. Man was created in God's image, but you were created in man's image to be his helper, companion, and weaker vessel. And then I quoted a couple of verses. I'll go ahead and read those to you. This is from Genesis 2, verses 20 through 23. So the man gave names to all the livestock, the birds in the sky, and all the wild animals. But for Adam no suitable helper was found. So the Lord God caused the man to fall into a deep sleep. And while he was sleeping, he took one of the man's ribs, and then closed up the place with flesh. Then the Lord God made a woman from the rib he had taken out of the man, and he brought her to the man. The man said, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, for she was taken out of man." I used to think that this was like a beautiful passage and so romantic and poetic. I now see like exactly what it is. It's clearly saying that a woman was made from man to be his companion. That is our purpose in life, is to be suitable for a man, to help him, to be his partner. When really, we have value all by ourselves. Okay, I'll go back to the article now. Women were created for the specific purpose of helping and serving men and bearing children for them. Women are expected to embrace this and feel privileged to hold the position of a man's helpmeet. And then with each point I made in this article, I then followed it up with what I now believe to be the truth. So, truth. I was not created from or for man. I evolved alongside man, and the only thing that separates me from a man is a single chromosome. All right, so then here's the second point. You are to be submissive to men, especially in church and in your marriage. Not only are you to be submissive, but you are to view it as a positive thing and suppress any leadership urges you may have because those urges are sinful. They go against God's design for marriage and godly womanhood. The only place of leadership a woman should have is over her children and other women. That is actually quite watered down compared to what the Bible actually says about women being submissive. The Bible says that women should be silent in the church and that it is disgraceful for a woman to speak. Women may only ask questions and learn from their husbands at home. And then I reference 1 Corinthians 14:34, which I will read for you. Women should remain silent in the churches. They are not allowed to speak, but must be in submission, as the law says. Oh, and I forgot to read the second verse that I had quoted for the first point number 1, about women being made for men and being the weaker vessel. In 1 Peter 3:7, it says, "Husbands, in the same way, be considerate as you live with your wives, and treat them with respect as the weaker partner, and as heirs with you of the gracious gift of life, so that nothing will hinder your prayers." So this is just one of the examples of it, like literally actually saying that we are the weaker partner, which is bullshit, because women are strong as hell. I mean, we even have a higher pain tolerance than men do. We birth children out of tiny little holes. Women are pretty incredible. I'm not going to lie. Like we are strong as fuck. So I will never, ever accept that idea again, that I am weak, that I'm not as good as a man or as strong as a man. I have been through a lot. Like so many women have been through so much and come out still strong, still surviving. So yeah, we're pretty damn strong. All right, going back to point number 2, talking about a woman being submissive. I then go on to say, also, a woman is not permitted to have authority over a man, but must be quiet. 1 Timothy 2:11-15. This passage so thoroughly describes a woman's position that I have to share the whole thing. So then in the actual article, I shared this verse. It says, "A woman should learn in quietness, in full submission. I do not permit a woman to teach or to assume authority over a man. She must be quiet. For Adam was formed first, then Eve. And Adam was not the one deceived. It was the woman who was deceived and became a sinner. But women will be saved through childbearing if they continue in faith, love, and holiness with propriety." Just wow. Just wow. This verse might be one of the most blatant examples of misogyny, especially in the New Testament. Like the Old Testament is just like littered with misogyny. But even in the New Testament, it's just so sexist. And this verse like really upsets me when I read it. And I used to believe this. I used to embrace this and take it to heart. Not anymore. Nope. Now this is what I believe is the truth. I do not have to submit to a man simply because he's a man and supposedly has power over me. If I'm inclined to leadership, I am just as equipped for that role as any man. I can choose how to express myself based on my preferences, personality, and skills. Here's point number 3. Since you are a less sexual being than a man, you are responsible for making it easier for the men in your life to maintain pure thoughts. If you dress in such a way that highlights the attractiveness of your body or shows too much skin, you are responsible for any inappropriate actions or thoughts of the men around you. This includes rape or sexual harassment in many people's minds, even if they only think it on a subconscious level, such as in the case of victim blaming. Deuteronomy 22:23-24 calls for the death of both the rapist and the rape victim if she didn't cry out loud enough to be rescued. If you wonder why we live in a victim-blaming culture, look no further than the holy books. Deuteronomy 22:23-24 says, "If a man happens to meet in a town a virgin pledged to be married and he sleeps with her, you shall take both of them to the gate of that town and stone them to death. The young woman because she was in a town and did not scream for help, and the man because he violated another man's wife. You must purge the evil from among you." So he's being put to death because he violated another man's property. She's being put to death because she dared to be in the town and not scream loud enough for help. Oh, I'm getting my red up. I had a feeling that would happen with this episode. Here's the truth of the matter. Women are just as sexual as men are. Our sex drives can be quite strong, and we are stimulated by all sorts of things, ranging from visual to physical to psychological. There is nothing weird about this. It's simply biology. On the point of victim blaming, if a man acts inappropriate towards a woman, he is responsible for his actions, not the woman. It doesn't matter what she was wearing or how much she was wearing. A woman does not deserve to be treated disrespectfully, harassed, or assaulted in any circumstance. I don't care if she was walking around naked. A woman is never asking to be raped. It's a pity that I even have to point that out. This is something that's even so ingrained in the women in our culture. Like, even women I work with, people I'm around, like, I hear the conversations happening. I hear the judgy comments and tones about things that happen to other women, people like women who are assaulted or treated poorly by men. Other women will comment and say, well, if she wasn't being such a slut, or if she wasn't dressed like that or wearing that much makeup, maybe she wouldn't be getting that kind of attention. And it's like, it doesn't matter what she was doing. It doesn't matter what she was wearing. You don't deserve to be treated like that, no matter what. And I don't know how to get that through their heads. Like, it just doesn't matter. The person doing the harm is the one always responsible. Can we please adopt that in our culture? Please. I think we're heading in the right direction with things like the Me Too movement and such, but we have a long ways to go. I really want to see this become more common knowledge. Religion certainly does not help in that area. Here's point number 4. Your sexual purity is your worth. If you, quote, give it up before marriage, then you have tainted yourself and are therefore worth less to your future husband. In Deuteronomy 22:21, the law demands that if a girl is found to not be a virgin on her wedding night, then she should be taken to the doorstep of her father's house and stoned to death. This is obviously not something that is practiced today in most of the world, but the idea of virginity being a woman's worth has lived on. Also, side note, this is something that is practiced to a degree within Islam. So yeah, it still even exists here in the 21st century, which is just baffling. And what can make something like that survive into the 21st century? That's right, religion. The truth of the matter is, I am worth a hell of a lot more than my virginity. Moving on to point number 5. Each sexual partner you have before marriage takes a piece of your heart that you can never get back. And if you give away too much of your heart, you will eventually have nothing left to give. I know for a lot of people in school, or in a youth group, they were taught that every time that you have sex before marriage, it's like your gum being chewed up. And so every time you have sex with someone else is chewing that gum, and it's getting gross and it's getting mangled and it's losing its taste. And then eventually that is the gum that you're going to give to your future spouse. And if it's all gross and chewed up and without taste, then what good are you? And that is just such a horrible, horrible way to look at sexuality. Like, sex doesn't ruin you. But this mindset is so prevalent, and so many people teach this to their children or to young people. They're telling these people basically, sex is this horrible, dirty, nasty thing. You should definitely save it for the person that you love the most. All right. And then in response to point number 5 about multiple sex partners, the truth of the matter, you cannot actually give your heart away. You can love someone deeply and choose to have sex with only them, but your heart and sexuality are still yours. In fact, it doesn't matter how many sex partners you have over the course of your life. Your heart always belongs to you. It can't be ruined by somebody else having sex with you. Point number 6. Within marriage, denying sex to your husband is sinful. You should always be willing, even if you don't feel like it or don't get anything out of it, because he has needs that are your job to fulfill. Also, if you don't fulfill your husband's sexual needs, then it is essentially your fault if he has an affair. This is what I was taught. It doesn't necessarily represent what all Christian women are taught, but it is biblical. Here's the truth. A woman should have complete control over the rights of her body. I definitely think that, especially in a monogamous relationship, it's important to be considerate of each other's desires and be available to each other, but it's not right for a woman to feel like she can never say no. It is this way of thinking that has given many men the justification to force themselves upon their wives. Yes, that is still rape. Marital rape is a thing. You don't have a right to your partner or your spouse's body just because they promised themselves to you or committed themselves to you in some way. That doesn't mean consent. You still have to get consent. Also, if a man or woman has an affair behind their spouse's back, that is on them and no one else. That's them cheating. It's no one's fault but their own. Deception is never okay. Point number 7. It's weird for women to masturbate. That is something that men struggle with, not women. If you do struggle with masturbation, you are not only weird, but you are robbing your husband because masturbating will make you desire him less. It will also desensitize you to his touch. Vibrators will make it so that you are unable to achieve orgasm without it. Using a dildo will damage your husband's self-esteem, which is your job to keep healthy. And if you want penetration, it should only be your husband to do so. Anything else is just slutty and robs your husband of pleasures he could be getting. All right, women, here's the truth. Women very much enjoy masturbating and start at a very young age, just like boys, sometimes earlier. It's not dirty or weird. It's just our nature as human beings. In addition to being fun as hell and feeling amazing, there are many great benefits of masturbation for women, such as stress relief, release of happy hormones, dopamine and oxytocin, familiarization with one's body, experience of pleasure. It even helps with sleep. You can read more about the benefits of female masturbation online, but there are a ton. And it goes for men too. Masturbation is a very healthy thing. It's a very healthy way of releasing tension, for learning like what works for your body and what doesn't. So then when you're in a sexual situation with somebody else, you know how you can get pleasure and you can help them to pleasure you. There are just so many amazing benefits of masturbation. Plus, it's just fun. It's fun and it feels good. Why should we discourage ourselves from doing something beautiful? Also, the point about masturbation making it so that you don't desire your partner or that you can't like get off during sex, that's bullshit. First of all, masturbating can oftentimes increase your sex drive. So you may end up wanting your partner even more if you're masturbating more, at least for women. I know that's the truth. And then like the release of dopamine and oxytocin, that can help with depression. All kinds of great things about masturbation. So yeah, women who masturbate are not weird. They're not slutty. They're not whores. They're not gross. It's beautiful. And then here's what I wrote about it, which I probably just said a lot of the same stuff just now, but I'll go ahead and read what I wrote. So the idea that women could only have sex in order to please men and seek approval is ignorant. See truth point number 3. Which is that women are just as sexual as men. Women are sexual beings and can choose how they would prefer to express their sexuality. I'm sure there are some women and men who have sex to act out in a way, but that is not the norm. If a person chooses to have multiple sex partners, that is their choice based on their sexual preferences and orientation. As long as they are consenting adults and there is no deception involved or harm of other people, to each their own. And as far as harm goes, as long as the harm is consensual, that is also okay. Basically, just needs to be consenting adults and no deception, and you're good to go. All right, here's point number 9. It is actually better if a man doesn't marry a woman at all. But if he burns with lust, then he'll have to settle for marriage, even though it'll get in the way of him serving God to the best of his ability. And that comes from 1 Corinthians 7:7-9, which says, I wish that all of you were as I am, but each of you has your own gift from God. One has this gift, another has that. Now to the unmarried and the widows I say, it is good for them to stay unmarried as I do. But if they cannot control themselves, they should marry, for it is better to marry than to burn with passion. This gives women the impression that they are more of a burden or hindrance than anything. Women have a lot to offer the world and are not simply an inconvenience that a man must suffer in order to get off from time to time. That verse says to only marry if you burn with passion and can't control yourself. So don't marry because you love a woman or because she makes you better or she, is a wonderful person in and of herself. You should marry her so you can have sex with her so that you don't burn with passion, therefore being able to serve the Lord better. What? All right, point number 10. If you really think about it, everything that is wrong with the world is because of women. If Eve hadn't been deceived by the talking snake in the Garden of Eden, then sin wouldn't have entered the world, and there would be no disease, pain, suffering, starving children, war, or a devastation of any kind. Women are weak vessels, after all. All right, here's the truth. This is what it all boils down to. A woman caused the fall of mankind. Therefore, all women must be subservient to men and experience pain and childbirth as punishment for this fault. This is based on a mythical story told thousands of years ago that is completely based in fiction. Why is our culture still influenced by this ridiculous story in the 21st century? It's baffling, it's frustrating, it's infuriating. Can we please grow up as a culture and as a species? I feel like we could be better, we could do better. So yeah, we need to keep working towards equality for sure. We have a long way to go. We've come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. And I've come a long way. I love that I can look back on these things that I was taught, things that I took to heart and believed with all of my heart. And now I can look at them and realize that they're wrong. I've changed my mind, which is one of the most powerful things, the ability to change your own mind and to move on and grow. I've grown in so many ways from when I was younger and had all of these messed up ideas about how the world worked and how my body worked. Now I know myself better. I know that I am a beautiful person because I am me, not because I'm a woman, not because I fit societal norms. I realized that I'm bisexual and I've embraced that as being something wonderful about me. Like the fact that I can have attraction to not only one sex, but multiple sexes. I'm actually pansexual. I can be attracted to any kind of person. That's not a bad thing. That's a beautiful thing. It's beautiful that I actually have that openness and I'm more able to experience more beauty because of that. That's something that I wasn't able to embrace when I was younger. I had to squash those feelings and suppress them and deny them. Now that I'm able to actually embrace who I am, I feel so much more freedom and understanding of who I am as a person, and I can more completely accept myself. And I'm proud of that fact, which is another point. I wasn't allowed to be proud before. Pride was one of the worst things you could feel. I'm goddamn proud of myself for who I've become and the hurdles that I've had to jump over. Saying that out loud feels so good. And I know there are still like a lot of people who kind of cringe at people who feel pride about themselves or who like themselves because it seems like narcissistic or something. It's not that. You're allowed to like yourself. You're allowed to be proud of yourself. And the more you do, the more you can express those feelings towards other people. The more you can let go of judgment and jealousy, and you can feel compersion for other people. Compersion being feelings of joy when other people experience joy. And I've learned to do that, and I think it's a powerful thing. So yeah, embrace who you are. Women, you're amazing. You are strong. You are worth more than your body. You're worth more than what you can do for a man. And you deserve to be treated with respect, no matter how you dress, how you act, how much you've drank. You are worth it. You are worthy of being treated with respect. Please, please, please carry that in your mind at all times and remind yourself that that is what you're worth. So I hope this was insightful for some, maybe just validating for others. I know that even just writing this all out and putting it in front of myself felt very therapeutic because it's like, okay, now I have it all out on paper and I can see these things that have changed in my life, and I can even better appreciate how differently I feel about this stuff now. So yeah, maybe just like sit down by yourself and just like write things out, like what you used to believe about yourself and how it's changed. It might be a nice therapeutic exercise for you. But to wrap things up this week, I'm going to thank our patrons because they rock. We don't have any new patrons this week, but we do have our top patrons who pledge $5 or more per episode and get a plug at the end of every episode. We also have a few patrons who are at that level but don't have a plug, so I'll also thank them. All right, I'm going to start with Rich Kemp. Rich wants me to plug Recovering from Religion. If you go to recoveringfromreligion.org, it's a great resource. They're a great organization, and they have a ton of resources on how to navigate the journey out of religion. They also have a helpline, which is not only a call-in line, but also a chat line. So if you don't want to actually call and talk to a person on the phone, you can text with somebody, a real person, and get, helpful information and things like that. The next person that I'd like to thank is Marissa Alexa McCool, and she would like me to plug her podcasts, which are the Inciting Incident podcast. She and Bethany Futrell, but her and Bethany do this podcast together, and they just do a fantastic job. I love listening to them interact and talk. I love listening to the guests that they have on. They have a lot of great guests. It's really something great to check out, especially if you're wanting to get a glimpse into like the atheist or, skeptical world. A lot of the people that she has on are people in the community that are worthwhile. So check that out. Also, her other podcast is The Cis Are Getting Out of Hand, which I just love the title of that one. And I forgot to mention last time, if you don't know what cis means, it just means that you're somebody who identifies as the gender that you were assigned at birth. So, like for me, I was assigned female at birth. I identify as female. I'm cis. And a lot of times, cis people have a hard time understanding and relating to transgender people. So Marissa started this podcast where transgender people can talk about cis people and how ridiculous they can be and how they get out of hand. And it's entertaining. It's insightful. It helps me to realize like areas where I know I need to improve and help, other people in my life to improve in that area. So it's really a great podcast, so check it out. She does that one with Ari Stillman, who is also amazing. The next person I'd like to thank is Christopher Powell. He wants me to plug the Tri-State Freethinkers. The Tri-State Freethinkers is a group in this area. So we live in Cincinnati, so we live in the Tri-State area, Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky. This group is large, very active. They do things like pretty much every day of the month. They do a lot of community service, activism, educational events, social events. It's pretty awesome, and I'm on the board, so I pretty much love them. And lastly, I'd like to thank Thomas Smith of Serious Inquiries Only. His podcast takes a critical thinking look into topics like science, religion, politics, current news stories, etc. He just focuses on things that are relevant and interesting, and he'll often have guests on to talk about those things. This is one of my favorite podcasts, and Thomas is a great person and a great friend. So check that out. The other patrons that are at $5 or above who I'd like to thank who don't have plugs are Joseph Rakowski, Justin Krabs, and Mark Ramsey. So thank you to all of our patrons. You all are amazing, and you make this happen. You make this work for us, and it's greatly, greatly appreciated. You guys rock my socks off. So that pretty much wraps it up for this episode. I am proud of myself. I actually went for 45 minutes or something. So not quite an hour, but I did it. First time recording an episode all by myself. So anyway, I'll stop bragging on myself and wrap this episode up. So I'll catch you guys next time, and Patrick will be back with us, and it'll be awesome. But in the meantime, keep it real.